What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So I want to talk about Spider-Man today, but I can't show you what I want to talk about, but I will highlight it based on a tweet that I just saw recently. And it was a question that somebody asked, and they said, do you think adding health bars to the boss fights was a smart move by Insomniac? So hashtag Spider-Man, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to walk through, the different options that people have actually posited, the different opinions, and so on and so forth. And we'll kind of, in a sense, talk about why they decided to go this way. Because I was playing it, and in my mind, I was like, man, it seemed like Insomniac went Dark Souls on me. That's what I first thought. I'm not going to lie. Because this was not the only boss where I saw it, and I was like, whoa, there's a big old health bar here. And that was out of place, in a sense, right? So someone said, I love it being on top of the screen instead of on the enemy, if that makes sense. It's just a HUD. That's all it is. Yeah, I guess the position of the HUD is probably something. Someone said, I honestly don't look at it, but it's nice that it's there. Oh, if you're playing on Spectacular, you played this guy on Spectacular, you're going to look at it. I don't care what you think. I mean, he was a difficult boss for me to deal with. Someone said, yes, yes, yes. No, all those boss fights were just parry fest. And parries don't work well. Thank God. I thought it was only me. I made a video about this. I don't know what order I'm going to release it, but maybe if you're watching these videos that I'm putting out, you'll see that I mentioned something like that. Also, boss fights were way too grounded. We're supposed to be Spider-Man. So disappointed that we didn't fight Venom through the city or with Miles. I don't like this new style of boss fights. It's spammy. Okay. I got to put a little bit of context to this because I strongly I strongly agree with what he said, but I also understand the position of the developers because I think what's going on here is they have a combat style that is core to the game. They have an entire video game style that, in my opinion, is kind of spammy, but when you're fighting in a big, area that you have more room, you can utilize more tools that takes away or reduces the spamminess of the combat. I don't know if I said that properly, but you get what I mean. Those of you who are playing, you understand what I mean. But then when you now are confined in a small place with the boss, then you're now in an interesting position where you can, punch all you want and do special moves all you want. The cooldowns are only on special moves. You don't have anything that's holding you back. And I think this is what really makes the Souls games somewhat dynamic because you have to manage resources. Not only are you managing cooldown, you're managing stamina, you're managing the way the bosses fight, the reach of, your weapon or your spells or whatever. But Spider-Man's got to get up close. So with that third-person camera where you're just punching and he's punching you and he's hitting you and you're dodging similar moves, it just kind of felt out of place for the combat itself. I know this person is asking about the health bar, but, it's hard to talk about the health bar without talking about the combat itself. Someone says, I see nothing wrong with live bars. Most games do it. It's the norm for video games. Hey, where y'all at, man? I wish y'all said something when Gotham Knights had, the health bars. I'm just saying, I mean, you see what I told you? Ladies and gentlemen, I told y'all that we gamers, we play favorites all the freaking time. When we like it, it's fine. That's just the way life is. I love it. Someone says no because it's scripted boss fights. I don't understand what they're saying. It does seem kind of scripted, I guess. Someone said, I don't think so. A boss should always have a health bar you can see. I think it was just an undersight that they fixed from the previous game. Someone says, yes, absolutely. It made them longer and more of a fight than repeat this action 5 times without even knowing how many times it will be before you trigger the cutscene. I love boss fights in all games, but these were the best. Really? I don't know. Okay. That's their opinion anyways. It feels more like an Insomniac boss fight, if that makes sense. I guess that's where we go back to the spammy that somebody was saying because, you're just constantly punching, punchy. And someone said, I hated it when I first heard about it. I wanted an option to remove it, but when I actually played it, it was actually helpful. Again, like I said, it depends on your difficulty. 50-50, I don't really care. Someone said it was a nice feature and all that. But I think where this is coming from is from the fact that when you're fighting regular bad guys, you don't necessarily, see, you don't see any. It's not in the game for a HUD. Now it exists in the game's code. The enemy NPCs have a life value, and Spider-Man's moves deal a specific damage value, so it does exist. You just don't have a HUD display to actually show that life bar. That's all it is. When you're designing a video game, I say that's all it is, but that is what it is. When you're designing a video game, the enemy NPCs, depending on the NPC type, if they're armored, if they're, maybe ranged NPCs, you're going to give them, a different amount of health, or if they're brutes or whatnot. The difference now is if you're going to tie the health that you're giving them to a heads-up display that the player can actually see, or that will indicate to the player that, hey man, you're about to take out this enemy NPC, or this is how much health the enemy NPC has left, and then the player can then decide how they want to go about, dealing with other enemy NPCs and such. In many games, you can just disable them. You can disable HUD, but for bosses, I think it's always helpful to be able to have something like that. That's my personal, preference in a sense. So some people said, yes, some of these fights made me want to smash my controller after round 3. Yes, it helped me when I wanted to manage my abilities, particularly on Spectacular. When getting hit is basically game over. Yep, I love how we have to fight them a few more times before they go completely down. It's nice to know how close I am to defeating the boss, unlike the first game, Miles Morales, where I feel I'm just endlessly beating a brick wall that decided to fall after a few minutes. Yeah, I kind of felt like that in Miles Morales. Like, okay, I was just punching the bad guy, and she didn't budge. I was like, when is the fight gonna be over? Hell bars. I'm a fan of 3-phase back-to-back for multiple bosses. I wasn't really a fan of. Ended with way too many bosses if you count each bar as a separate boss. The boss fights are much improved, but I like the health bars, especially the way they are. They aren't distracting, but if you need to glance at them, you can. Yeah, I actually do think so. So it seems the consensus is mostly yes. They were very helpful. And I'm happy this is a very interesting thing that Insomniac did. I'm sure they must have gotten a lot of in-house testing and a lot of feedback that actually did show that, hey, this is actually helpful, because, again, it's not crazy to implement in terms of the developer perspective. It's just something that is already there. Like, it's in the code base of the game. It already indicates to the player, like, hey, by the way, you have, this is something that's in the game. We just are giving you a UI piece of the puzzle to be able to get a visual picture of what it is that you're doing, how much progress you're making. I like it a lot. It's core, it's fundamental to some of the best games out there, in a sense. If you think about the Souls games, if you think, those boss fights are representative of this. And, with this particular setup, with the way they have you fighting Lizard in this enclosed area, it kind of gave me a little bit of a Souls vibe, and I like that a lot. All right. What are your thoughts? What do you think about the health bar? What do you think about the boss fights? Tell me in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Peace out.